Alright, buckle up, cause we're about to talk about the Slayer mosh pit experience. Now, if you've ever been to a Slayer show, you know that calling it a mosh pit is like calling a tornado a breeze. It's not just a mosh pit, it's an extreme sport. It's less of a concert and more of a survival challenge. In fact, I'd argue that stepping into a Slayer pit is less about seeing a band and more about entering some sort of ritualistic battleground. When the lights go down and the opening riffs of Raining Blood start to flood the arena, it's like stepping into an alternate reality. Time slows, the air thickens with anticipation, and you realize, this is it. This is the moment you've been waiting for, the reason you've been wearing that Slayer shirt for years, because today you'll either survive or be swallowed by the chaos. Let me take you back to my first time. I had just turned 18, fresh out of high school, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about metal. I'd headbanged to Slayer, I knew every riff from South of Heaven to Angel of Death. But I didn't know Slayer until I stepped into that pit. My stomach was a twisted mess of nerves as the show began, and I was overwhelmed by the raw, primal energy that hit me like a brick wall. You see, Slayer's crowd is like no other. You've got your hardcore fans, your metal warriors, your road dog types, all swarming the floor like they've been summoned from the deepest parts of hell. This isn't your typical concert crowd where people just stand there and nod along to the music. This is a battle for survival. Your first Slayer show is never just an entertainment experience. It's a rite of passage. So, you walk in, right? You've got your Slayer shirt on, you're feeling tough, you've been headbanging to Raining Blood for years, and you think, yeah, I got this, I'm gonna get in the pit and show everyone how metal I am. You've got your battle face on, your metal face. And then the first riff kicks in. That's when it hits you. It's like you've just stepped into another dimension where the laws of physics don't apply and everyone around you looks like they've been forging swords in the underworld for centuries. I remember the first time it happened to me. I was standing near the front, soaking in the energy, feeling like I was a part of something greater than just a concert. The first song hit and it felt like my feet weren't even on the ground anymore. The crowd surged forward with a collective roar, and I realized right away that this wasn't just music, it was an elemental force. It was as if the crowd was a living entity moving in a single wave of sound and chaos. And then, just like that, wham, you're sucked into the chaos. Someone's knee meets your ribcage and you're gasping for air. You try to push your way through, to throw some elbows, but it doesn't matter. Every time you think you have a moment to breathe, someone else is shoving you or slamming into you. It's like being in a WWE match where the goal is to survive and the ref's not watching. Everyone's out for blood, whether they know it or not. I thought I was ready. I had the metal face. But in that first moment, when I hit the pit, I realized I had no idea what I was getting into. Let me tell you something about a Slayer pit, it's not nice. It's not everybody gets along and throws a little friendly shove. Oh no. It's like everyone has something to prove, and that something is aggression. People in this pit don't mosh, they attack. It's not about showing off some fancy moves or keeping your balance. No, it's about getting in there and surviving the onslaught. You're standing there, minding your own business, and then all of a sudden, someone's spinning around like they're auditioning for The Exorcist, knocking you off your feet. You don't even have time to react. You just hit the floor and have to scramble back to your feet, hoping you're not trampled by the metal horde surging around you. One guy tried to give me a friendly shove. I think he was trying to say sorry after knocking me down, but before I could even get a word out, he was plowing through the crowd again. There's no time to think, only to survive. The aggression is almost overwhelming. You can feel the heat from bodies packed together, sweat mixing with the smell of marijuana, blood, and beer. I remember one time a guy slammed into me so hard that I thought my ribs were cracked. I stumbled back, disoriented, but before I even had time to regain my footing, another fan with the Slayer face paint wearing nothing but black leather straps charged through the crowd like some battle-hardened warlord, and I swear to God, he was aiming for me. This dude had the intensity of 1,000 suns. It wasn't just about moshing to the beat, he was out for blood. I dodged him just in time, and that's when I realized you have two choices in a Slayer pit. Either you get out of the way or you get run over. While you're thrown around by the physical chaos, the sensory overload is real. There's the smell of sweat hanging in the air, the body heat radiating off the crowd, the overwhelming scent of marijuana and stale beer. It's an assault on the senses in the best way. When you breathe in, it's almost like inhaling the essence of pure aggression. A mix of bodies, beer, and blood, add a touch of marijuana, and you've got the perfect Slayer atmosphere. And the sound. It's deafening. You hear the guitar riffs cut through the air like blades, drums pounding like the footsteps of giants, and the roar of the crowd drowning out anything else. It's so loud that your ears feel like they've been carved out by the shrieks of Angel of Death. The floor beneath you shakes with each bass drop, and you can feel the music reverberate through your entire body. The pit itself seems to pulse with the rhythm of the song. Every song feels like an unholy ritual. You're not just hearing the music, you feel it. In those moments, the line between music and chaos blurs, and all you can do is let go, lose yourself in the storm of it all. Now, after the pit, oh, the aftermath, folks. You leave that concert looking like you've been run over by a monster truck. Your muscles ache. Your body is a mess of bruises, cuts, and your shirt is drenched in sweat, blood, and spilled beer. I remember limping out of the pit after my first Slayer show, feeling like I had just crawled out of hell itself. My ribs were sore, my ears were ringing like I'd been caught in a storm of pure thrash, and my mind was spinning. But you don't care. You look at your bruised body, your swollen face, and you think, yeah, I survived. Because that's what it is, right? You don't just go to a Slayer concert. You survive it. It's not about the music anymore. It's about what you just went through. You'll look in the mirror the next morning, sore, exhausted, but feeling that sense of pride. You earned those bruises. You've got stories to tell. The neck aches from headbanging, the cuts from the elbows and the occasional flying body, the bruises you'll carry for weeks afterward. It's all part of the Slayer experience. You wear it like a badge of honor, and you're already planning your next show. Because once you've survived the Slayer pit, you know there's no going back. It's not just about the music anymore. It's about being a part of something bigger than yourself. A tribe of metalheads bound together by the most primal, most visceral form of music there is. Let me take you back to a time when Slayer was more than just a band. They were legends. The year was 2010, and Slayer was still tearing up the stage with the same intensity they had for decades. It was the kind of show where you knew you weren't just witnessing a concert. You were witnessing history. And for me, it was the first time I saw Jeff Hanneman live. So, yeah, folks, that's a Slayer mosh pit. It's not for the faint of heart, it's not for the weak, but if you survive it, you'll be able to walk away with a feeling that can't be matched, bruises and memories. And the best part? You'll be talking about that night for years as you limp to the next Slayer show. Thanks, everybody, and remember, blood for the blood god, and may your bones heal. This is just the start of expanding into more of an 18,000-word piece. We continue to flesh out personal stories, extend descriptions, and develop character arcs and deeper reflections as we move through the entire experience. Would you like me to continue in this direction? So, you've made it through the chaos, right? You're standing there, panting, chest heaving, covered in sweat, beer, and God knows what else. Your body aches, your face feels like it's been run through a cheese grater, and you're thinking about the fact that you somehow survived the Slayer pit without getting carried out on a stretcher. But here's the thing, in that moment, you feel invincible. You feel like you've just conquered a small piece of hell. And then, just as you're catching your breath, someone, probably some equally worn-out survivor of the pit, shoves a beer in your hand. It's a Bud Light, maybe the most basic of beers, but at that moment, it tastes like the nectar of the gods. You don't even care that it's warm or that it's been spilled all over your Slayer shirt. You take the beer like you've been wandering the desert for days, thirsty for anything that will ease the madness of the pit. You crack it open, chugging down that first sip, and everything in the world seems a little bit better. The cold liquid slides down your throat, numbing the aches, and as you finish the beer, you realize this isn't just about survival anymore. This is about being part of a moment. It's like you've been initiated into a secret club, a family of warriors who know exactly what it's like to survive the most brutal, unrelenting pit on the planet. You're sitting there, trying to catch your breath, and that's when you realize you smell the weed. It's everywhere. The sweet, earthy scent is floating through the air like incense, mixing with the beer-soaked chaos. It's like the crowd is offering up an unspoken truce. Yeah, we may have just slammed into each other like bulls in a china shop, but here, now, we're all part of this experience. I remember looking around, and it hit me that everyone in that crowd, covered in sweat and dirt, from the ripped-up shirts to the bruised arms, was one. The experience of the pit transcended all the chaos. It bonded you to everyone in that room in a way words could never explain. Even when someone elbowed you in the face or knocked you down, there was no hatred, no animosity. Just a shared, unspoken understanding that you had all come for the same thing, the music, the madness, and the brotherhood of metal. The smells, let's talk about the smells for a second. Most people don't talk about it, but you have to understand that it's a huge part of the Slayer pit experience. The air is thick with the acrid stench of sweat, body odor, and cheap cologne. The kind of smell that sticks to your skin, to your hair, and follows you long after the show is over. But it's not just sweat. It's the smell of battle. It's the pungent scent of pure aggression in the air. When you're moshing, it's like your body forgets it's a human one. You're not even thinking about how much you stink or how your armpits are drenched in sweat. All you care about is the music, the chaos, and staying on your feet. You've been shoved, elbowed, and smacked more times than you can count. And while the bruises will sting for days, the smell of sweat mixed with blood and the pungency of marijuana will linger far longer. And then there's the blood. Oh yeah, the blood. If you haven't seen it in the Slayer pit, then you've never truly experienced it. It's not a mosh pit. It's a war zone. Some folks go in there thinking it's all about fun and games, but after your first elbow to the nose or that boot to the shin, you realize this shit's real. I remember the first time I saw blood pouring down someone's face. A guy just like me, in a Slayer shirt with his hands raised in the air. He'd been knocked clean out, but what stuck with me was the sheer amount of blood spilling from his nose, the bright red stain against his pale face. I thought for a second I might need to help him, but before I could even move, another fan grabbed him by the arm, picked him up, and they were back in the fray within seconds. That's the beauty and the brutality of Slayer's pit. You may have lost a little blood, but you've also gained something, an unbreakable sense of purpose, of resilience. As the blood pours down your face, as your bones ache, you know this is more than just a concert. It's an initiation, and you belong. But here's the thing, the Slayer pit doesn't stop at just the music and the chaos. It's about the warriors in the pit. It's about the ones who live for this, the ones who have been to every show, mosh'd in every city, and come out on the other side every single time with even more stories to tell. The Slayer pit is a place for the real warriors. One time, I remember seeing this guy who had to be in his late 40s, maybe older. He had tattoos all over his arms, half sleeves, full sleeves, some ancient ink that had probably seen its fair share of pits over the years. The dude was ripped, not just in terms of muscles, but in the sense that he knew what he was doing. It was like he had mastered the art of survival in the pit. When that first riff hit, he was in it, charging through the crowd like a juggernaut, and you better believe no one was stopping him. This guy had clearly seen it all. He wasn't just there to mosh. He was there to show the rookies what it meant to really survive. Every time someone tried to take him out, he just shrugged them off like it was nothing. That's the essence of a Slayer pit veteran. They've learned how to take a hit, how to survive, and how to turn the chaos into an art form. They wear the scars like medals, and they wear their bruises with pride. I remember thinking, I want to be like that guy. Maybe not the bruises, okay, maybe a few, but the confidence, the survival instinct. The Slayer pit is a proving ground. It's not for the faint-hearted, but for those who understand that true metal runs through their veins. After all that chaos, after the sweat and blood, you feel it. Your legs are sore, your neck aches from headbanging, and your ears are ringing like they've been crushed by 1,000 decibels. But there's this weird thing that happens. You don't care. In fact, in that moment, you feel more alive than you've ever felt before. It's like you've been tested and you've passed. The music hits its peak. You're in the middle of Angel of Death or Raining Blood. And for a second, you can't hear anything other than the screaming guitars and the roar of the crowd. You don't think about the pain, the cuts, or the bruises. All that matters is that you're alive in that moment, a part of something bigger than yourself. You're a part of Slayer's ritualistic, chaotic universe, and it's beautiful. By the time the show's over, you're limping out of the venue, your body practically on autopilot. You can't wait to collapse into a chair, to take a long, cold shower, and to wash the pit off you. But as you walk out, you know you'll be back. It's like a drug, a rush you can't deny. And that's what Slayer is all about. Survival, aggression, unity, and the music. You may leave bruised and battered, but you'll leave a warrior, ready to tell the tales of the night you survived the Slayer mosh pit. And then there are the Slayer-loving chicks. Oh man, the women in the Slayer pit. They're something else. These women are not your average concert-goers. They don't just show up for the show. They show up for the war. If you've ever been in a Slayer mosh pit, you know the energy these chicks bring. They're fierce, they're passionate, and they're just as hardcore as the guys. I remember one particular show. It was one of those wild Slayer nights where you could feel the sweat and adrenaline mixing in the air. As I made my way into the pit, I noticed a woman standing near the edge. She was wearing an old, faded Slayer shirt, one that looked like it had been through hell and back. Her hair was wild, her face covered in tattoos, and her eyes gleamed with excitement as she watched the chaos unfold. The moment the music hit, she dove into the pit like she was born for it. And she didn't just mosh it, she dominated the pit. There was this one moment during Angel of Death, when she locked eyes with me, and without missing a beat, she grabbed me by the shoulders, threw me to the side like I was a rag doll and kept on going. It wasn't an accident, either. She was leading the charge, showing everyone around her what true metal ferocity looked like. The Slayer-loving chicks, they're the ones who give as good as they get. I've seen them slam into guys twice their size, holding their ground in the middle of the pit without flinching. They don't back down, and when they get knocked down, they get right back up, ready for more. The Slayer pit is a place of equality, and these women prove that metal is not gendered. It's about heart, it's about passion, and it's about being part of the music. There was another show where I saw a group of metal chicks, all wearing black denim vests, denim jackets covered in patches of their favorite bands, including Slayer. These girls weren't just in the pit for fun. They were on a mission. As the show went on, they began to form this tight-knit unit, moving as one, creating a wall of force in the middle of the madness. They knew exactly what they were doing, while others around them were just fighting to survive. These Slayer chicks were owning it. They motioned with purpose, never backing down from a hit, and the way they moved in sync was almost like an extension of the Slayer music itself. It was an art form. They were the queens of the pit, and everyone around them respected that. In a sea of testosterone and sweaty chaos, they were the ones who commanded the space with their intensity and their unwavering love for Slayer. At the end of the day, there's no other mosh pit quite like Slayer's. It's not just a pit, it's a test of metal, a trial by fire. And if you survive, you walk away with the knowledge that you've been a part of something eternal. It's the kind of experience that shapes you, molds you, and leaves you with a sense of pride that stays with you long after the show ends. So, yeah folks, that's a Slayer mosh pit. It's not for the faint of heart, it's not for the weak, but if you survive it, you'll be able to walk away with a feeling that can't be matched, bruises and memories. And the best part? You'll be talking about that night for years as you limp to the next Slayer show. Thanks, everybody, and remember, blood for the blood god, and may your bones heal.